Hello and welcome back to the Modern Firm Podcast. Darren, good to see you.
Good to see you, John.
I haven't got a chance to talk to you yet about your trip, but good weekend in Chicago.
You know, Chicago so it was our 40th anniversary trip.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. I was concerned that we would make it. We did make it. I told Michelle it was a huge relief that we made it. It was the day before I was telling a sales rep, it's day by day. But no, great time. It was like 72 degrees on the Friday, but then it's going to be like 98 this week in Chicago.
Yeah, you hit it perfect.
72 in Chicago and they had the air show and all that stuff's going on. There's just such a great vibe.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good precursor to a conversation about smart client management too. And the, you and I think we talk about this all the time. It's really geeky, but just the customer experiences that we experience and how firms should be thinking about the expectations of customers.
Michelle and I went back into the restaurant. I think it's Perot, P-E-I-R-R-O-T, anyway, it's a little cafe, French cafe, next to the Peninsula Hotel. And what's so interesting is they opened it back up maybe in the last 9 months, but it's got this beautiful bright green coat of paint. It's kind of green and white. They just have a couple ovens in there, and their food's fantastic, and their service is incredible, and it's almost impossible to get in to that place. And I guess the reason I bring that up is because had they not paid attention to the color, had they not paid attention to their food quality, or the people they hire, they all have their uniforms on, they look fantastic, and they just have great customer service, and they always remember your name. It's just really interesting how they do that, but what a difference. That's that. We've talked about the last 10% with your customers a lot of times. This place knows how to do that last 10%, and I think it's that last 10% oftentimes that takes you from being, yeah, we're doing okay, to, wow, we're crushing it.
Yeah. I think of it too is we're talking to people listening today, most of them who have client lists, who have a list of people that they know they're serving. When you go to that restaurant, yeah, they may know your name because you were there yesterday, but they don't really know much about you, and they still provide that service. The kind of conversation we're going to have today about smart client management really is about like the advantage you have as a small business to know intimately the information, the humans that are behind your client lists.
Yeah, after practicing for 35 years, for much of that time, I never spent the time printing my client list off and asking myself, what do I want this client list to be? Yeah. It was kind of like take on a new client, you chuck them in the system, you go on to get the next client, you chuck them in the system, and that's kind of the routine it seems like a lot of firms go through. I mean, your client list is one of the biggest assets you have. So as we think about smart client management, John, I think it starts out by printing that list out and, get you 2, 3, 4
first step
highlighters.
Yeah.
And figure out who your best clients are, however you would define that, and why you think they're your best clients. Is it because they pay you the most? Is it because they're buying the right services? Is it because they're wonderful people? Yeah. I mean, what is it that makes your ideal client profile for your firm, and try to figure that out.
Yeah, your A clients are easy. You just know. When you look at that list, you go A. And maybe there's different reasons for that. B gets a little harder, C gets a little harder, and you know what your D clients look like too. You can immediately begin to say, who are our most important clients here, and how should we be serving them better?
Well, I mean, I think how should we be serving them better is a great question. Yeah. So, as we think about smart client management, I think our listeners ought to think about it from the customer's perspective, right? What's the customer experience when they come to your firm? What do they expect? I just wrote an article, in Inc. magazine from the customer's perspective. And I can't remember the title of it offhand, but it was something about is your CPA thinking about you?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And for those in the profession, most of us know we don't spend a whole lot of time
thinking about individual clients.
Well, not ahead of time.
Yeah.
Right? If they ask
Unless
for
they
something.
come in,
right,
or
then
call.
we do.
Yep.
But we don't spend a lot of time otherwise.
Yeah.
But our clients, I think that we do.
Yeah.
And what they want from us is what I've come to call holistic customer service.
Yeah.
Right? Financially, holistically served. Meaning that if you're an optometry practice out there, there's probably 35 or 40 things that your accounting firm could help you with, from budgeting to, trending to how you pay your bills, and do you use a credit card and get rewards points for that, to are you using QBO, to, do you have a college? I mean, all these things.
Yeah.
Right? So they all add up to what it would mean to holistically serve that customer, and that's what the customer wants.
Yeah, that idea of holistic serving, to me, this all pivots on what you said to begin this, and that is thinking about your firm from your client's perspective. This is the hardest thing to do when you're just surviving. When you've got a business model that's out of control, when you've got a company that you're not being smart about, you're not being intentional about. But when you stop to say, what would my clients experience, you realize Starbucks has this figured out. That's why you go there. The places that you go to, they have, Darren, this is a word you and I are adamant about, you'll hear it a lot on this podcast, is the idea of productizing. From your perspective, it's easy just to come in, take someone's $1,200 a month and provide a general service. But from their perspective, I want a product. I want to buy something for that. And that's something that, Darren, we talk about a lot. You print your client list, you figure out who's there, and then you create this product-driven business model that isn't just this random service that we're providing, but it's very clear boundaries around what we're doing here.
I think what your client list can inform you of, John, is if you take that, let's say you use the green highlighter for the ones that that really are your sweet spot inside your firm. If you look at the common characteristics of those clients, that starts informing you of what your ideal client profile is.
Yeah.
And as you start getting informed as to what that is, the idea is to turn that into a product. So if you want to attract more ideal clients, then you need to, if you can understand what what their characteristics are.
Give us an example of one of those.
I think for the firm that I had for 35 years, I would say that it was a professional.
Yeah.
I won't differentiate medical versus other types of professionals, because a lot of those fall into very similar categories, but we actually did end up focusing in even more on optometry practices, because my partner at the time's wife had optometry practices, and we knew a lot about them.
Yeah.
Right? So we knew what made the optometry practices tick and how to talk to those people. So we also knew that we liked the bookkeeping component of that. We liked teaching clients how to maximize credit card rewards and how, to use them. We knew, the graphs to give them each month. We wanted to do payroll. We wanted to have regular meetings and coach them along. All those things were things that were, if somebody called and said, hey, I'm an optometry practice, or more than likely they filled out a form on our website, because most of our optometry practices ended up not being in Bloomington.
Yeah.
And they reached out to us, we knew, wow, this is an ideal client.
Yeah.
As opposed to, in our case, a construction company calling us. That wasn't our wheelhouse.
Yeah.
We were going to have to scramble to figure that out. So we know when we go down that list with our green highlighter, we're going to highlight every optometry practice on that list. Chances are, other medical practices are very similar to that, whether it's a dental or, general practitioner or whatever it is, orthopedic surgeons. We had all those clients. But the key, I think, John, for us was to identify within each of those profile types what it meant to holistically serve them. So what are those 35 things that client, if we were holistically serving them, would be doing? Would they be maximizing their retirement plan? Would they be saving for their kids' college education? Would they have a health savings account? I mean, go through the list of stuff. But it's a pretty finite list. And an optometrist is not a lot different than a dentist, maybe other than some of the KPIs and things like that, right?
Absolutely. You know, the thing that I was kind of smiling about while you were talking is just how good it feels. To serve someone like this,
to know what it means to serve them,
to know what it means to right. meet their expectations, and they don't often know what they need from you, and so that's what just feels so good to a firm.
You chuck this new client into the system because you just picked them up, and you expect somebody else in your office to figure out what it means to holistically serve them, and none of it's written down anywhere. It's not on anything.
Yeah.
It's just an expectation internally that, well, let's just start doing stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
Do you think a lot of this comes from the humility of most accountants, where they kind of sit back a little bit and expect that what they do, most people know, and they just forget that I have knowledge that will bring health to a business, and people don't understand how to form their business. They don't understand how to organize. And those things that are just sort of in your head are the product. That healthy business is your product.
Yeah, I mean, I think most accountants, have a decent amount of humility. I don't think that's what's driving it. I think what's driving it is their lack of paying attention.
Yeah.
And not because they don't want to pay attention. It's because they have their IT infrastructure to deal with. They have their IT. They have their software stack to deal with. They have team challenges, getting enough staff doing the right things, all that stuff. There's a lot keeping up with compliance to running a firm. To take the time to figure out what it means to holistically serve a customer has not been at the top of their priority list.
Yeah.
But I think in the world we live in today, more is not more in an accounting firm. More 1040s is not more to the firm.
Yeah.
Right? The right customer being holistically served and maximizing the revenue and the value they get is the way. I think it's the way to success today and to sustainability.
I think it makes a lot of sense. And I think one of the things that we've identified when it comes to this list and really being intentional about holistically serving your customers is that if you don't put somebody in charge of this, if it's just this endeavor that we randomly have chosen, it never really happens. And this is why we started talking about a smart client manager, someone in the office that's in charge of this list. So
if we think about what we've defined as smart client management, it is it's essentially the execution of your business model. So if your business model says who I want to serve, what I want to sell them, and how I want to deliver that. So if you understand those three things,
the who, the what, the how.
The who, the what, and the how. Smart client management is the daily execution of that. Just to have a business model without any execution, it doesn't get you anywhere.
It's like Seinfeld's reservations with the
the
car. Just taking anybody can take a reservation. It's holding the reservation. That's right.
That was such a great
anybody
line.
Can create a business model. It's executing the business model that makes it a business model.
Right. And so that's what we're really talking about. How do you daily execute on that?
Yeah.
And so I think after you understand who, what, and how, I think then you define the big picture of, okay, so if who's optometry practice, what may be your products, but what can also be, what are all those 35 things to holistically serve that customer? We've typically, as firm owners, taken and said, the what is payroll, or the what is client accounting services, or the what is tax services. No, Well, I would add one more, or we'd say the what is advisory services, but nobody ever took the time to define advisory services.
Yeah.
And so what happened, most of the time advisory services would be reactive because the firm hadn't taken the time to define what it is.
Yeah.
So we had to react to clients calling in and asking for something. Hey, should I have a retirement plan? Well, yeah, maybe that's a good idea, is how that would go. So when we think about the who, the what, and the how, the what now just got bigger. The what, if we're going to do advisory services for optometry practices, we need to define what that is, the 35 things. And then it's the daily execution of those 35 things. You're not going to do them all at one time, but you're going to plan that out. That leads us to our smart client manager. Whose responsibility is it to do this? So, sorry.
Yeah, my wife, this is her role in the firm. And partially because she's so good with people. Every time she sees a name, she thinks of their kids, and she thinks, if they're local, she knows them well. And it's just constantly on her mind that these are human beings. And it's a very natural thing for her to want to take charge in this way. But just putting someone in charge and not helping them define what those services are, what are we providing them? To me, the thing that I've seen her get the most excited about is the proactivity, being able to not sit back and wait. And honestly, that's what we're talking about in Chicago at your restaurant. This is people who know what you want before you ask for it. They actually know what a great experience in that restaurant is, better than you do. Yeah. And so they're going to give it to you, and then you're going to realize that was great. When Risha, my wife, is given that opportunity to serve people like that from the leadership of the firm, oh my gosh, you talk about an excitement for the way you make a phone call, the way you reach out in an email. It's, did you know that we can provide this? This is what we believe it means to holistically serve your customer. But
it does require somebody with deep understanding of what it means to holistically serve that customer. What are those products? What are those tax strategies? What are those accounts payable strategies? What are those budgeting strategies? Somebody's got to figure this out. They have to take the time to figure this out and to define that. It's not complicated.
Right.
Somebody has to take the time to do it. I guess I say it's not complicated. It's complicated for you.
Right.
Because this isn't what you're trained to do.
Exactly.
But it was what I was trained to do. So it's, just putting it down on, like I said, probably not on paper, but in digital format, handing that to Risha, saying, we have client ABC optometry practice. We want to execute on this.
Go get them.
Yeah.
So then Risha's toolkit is obviously these individual things that help me serve you holistically, but then also the time that she spends on a regular basis is wrangling data. It's just constantly mining the data and trying to find out. She has good relationships with the staff members where she can go in and say, no, that there's information in that office that is nowhere else in our database. I need to go get information about this customer. And data becomes her best friend as a smart client manager, gathering and leveraging that.
Yeah, I think it's one of the biggest gaps in running a firm. We recently did a podcast on smart firm management, and we talked about the importance of having the right technologies in order to surface data.
Yeah.
And the reason you would have the right technologies to surface data is for people like Risha, so that she doesn't have to fight to get that information. This information lives really, as I mentioned in our last podcast, in three different places. It's some of it's financial, lives in probably QuickBooks somewhere. Some of it is technology. What technologies is the client using? And you may get that in one of two ways. Maybe it's in the accounts payable in QuickBooks, right? Because you're paying the vendor, or the client's paying somebody.
Mm-hmm.
We could surface that. Maybe it's just asking the client through a client portal, hey, which technology are you using? Are you using Microsoft Office? Using QuickBooks Online? And then the third bucket is the soft data.
Yeah.
It's the are they a partnership? Do they have a buy-sell agreement? Is it funded? Those
Harder
sort
to
of
get
thing,
to.
right?
Yeah.
But if we can put the right tools in place,
yeah,
to start collecting that data and surfacing it for Risha, imagine how powerful that is. What I consider advisory services, John, is the gap between where a client is at today. So when we have those 35 things defined,
Yeah.
and then we take a balance sheet, if you will, of where the client is today, they're somewhere less than those 35 things.
Yeah.
Advisory services is closing that gap and understanding in which order you should be closing that gap. That would be what a smart client manager does.
I think that's really well said. I think I'd like to end this conversation just by taking a step back and just saying, how does it change my firm? If I'm listening to this today, I'm a firm owner, I'm already busy, I'm overwhelmed with technology, I'm overwhelmed with work. What does this look like when I get it right?
When you get it right, I think you have fewer clients.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping you'd say.
To manage. I think you're generating more revenue with less effort.
Yeah.
I think that's happening, which I think helps you as firm owner, helps your staff, helps everybody get on the same page inside the company. I think on the other side of that, you end up with a bunch of raving fans that are clients because they know they're being holistically served. They have a plan and that's being executed on. So I think it's a win for everybody, John, by doing this.
I think about the French cafe that we started this conversation with, and I think I don't see television commercials for them. You don't see billboards in Chicago for that company. They don't need it because you go once and that's all they need in terms of advertisement. And that's one of the things I love about this is that it takes this pressure off of firm owners to go out and create this marketing effort. And there are some great things you can do with marketing, but the best thing you can do is create an incredible product that people can't quit talking about.
The best source of revenue growth for accounting firms for as long as I can remember has been word of mouth.
Yeah.
One optometrist telling another one at a conference, you're not going to believe what my accountant does for me.
Yeah. Well, Darren, good discussion. You're going to hear a lot more about smart client management. Yep. It's a big part of our passion and what we're trying to do and trying to flesh out a little bit more at a time. It feels like I learn something every time we talk about it. Oh, there's another thing to write down about how we think about smart client management.
Yeah, I think early on in our podcast, we're trying to give the big picture of what these concepts mean, and future podcasts will dive deeper and deeper.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for listening today. I hope you heard something that moves your firm forward and creates a more modern understanding of what you guys do. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Thanks so much.